Welcome to this webinar. My name is Dennis Svärd. I am the Global PR Manager of TCO Development. TCO Development is the organization behind TCO Certified, as you all know, the leading sustainability certification for IT products. So when TCO Certified actually turns 30 years this year. So if you're interested, we have entertaining and educational quiz actually on our website. But today's webinar will get you up to speed on key issues impacting sustainability and IT. Climate, circularity and waste, upcoming regulations, impact reporting and supply chain transparency are all on the agenda for organizations wanting to drive more sustainability into the IT life cycle. You will also get an update on the latest from TCO Certified, upcoming engagement opportunities and available tools and resources to support your sustainability IT progress. So with us today, we have Claire Hobby and Søren Enholm, and I'll let them introduce themselves in a little while. But before I do that, I just want to say that you are welcome to ask questions in the chat. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end. And I will also let you know that the webinar will be available on demand later. All right. So Claire, you're usually located in the US, but today you are in the UK actually.
Today
Please introduce yourself in a few sentences.
Thank you, Dennis. That's right. I have the pleasure of being in the UK this week, enjoying some cooler weather than I usually do in Texas. So hi, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Claire Hobby. I lead our purchaser engagement work at TCO Development together with our purchaser support team. And if you're in IT procurement, no matter where you are in the world, there's a good chance we have someone on the team who's available to help you with any questions or any coaching you might need in your organization and maybe even in your local language. So you can always reach out to us.
Thanks, Claire. And Søren, you and I are located in our headquarters in Stockholm, Sweden. So please say a few words about yourself.
Yes, thank you, Dennis. That's correct. I've been here for 13 years now, so far from the 30 years of life of TCO Certified, but still quite a few years. Since we're quite a small organization, I'm involved in a little bit of everything and also lots of meetings and discussions with purchasers around the world.
Thanks, Søren. And so let us start. And Søren, maybe you can start with sharing your thoughts about today's sustainable IT landscape. Maybe tell us a bit more about major trends impacting the industry.
Yes, I mean, it's the engagement level regarding sustainability has been evolving a lot the last years, and I would say also especially the last year, I've seen big things happening. Sustainability is becoming the core of the business for many organizations, and sustainable performance is becoming more and more important as well. With reporting, for instance, many organizations are now going to more integrated reporting, not only financial, but other aspects of the business as well. And this is also becoming part of legislation in more and more countries. So lots of things are happening on the market, the purchasing market, the regulations, and of course we also see that the industry, the IT industry, from our perspective, is following this.
Claire, maybe you can share a few words, you as well?
Yeah, just building on what you just said, Søren, about the industry kind of taking some big steps in sustainability. And let's not forget that action from the market signals from purchasers is one huge driver of that activity, right? So when you guys in procurement or sustainability, either at the policy or the product specification level, embed sustainability in that ask or that signal, that's a business case. And, you know, let's face it, the market forces are definitely at play, even in the sustainability space. So that's a really interesting development. And I would add, yes, I think engagement in sustainable procurement is on the rise. Huge geographical variations around the world is what we're seeing, though. You know, some markets, maybe more in the Asia region, are definitely more interested in e-waste, much more of a fundamental question, whereas in parts of Europe, people are really looking at sustainable procurement as default. You know, this is something we absolutely must do, and starting to look at things like reuse and circular economy. So I think it's across the board. We need even more, though. I think we need to move this, not only core business, but mainstream business. Every organization should be embedding sustainability in their procurement, because it's the lever. It's the lever that the market is looking for, that voice and signaling from the customer. And procurement needs to lead. Procurement, it's not just a matter of finding more sustainable products and buying them. It's about driving the development of those products and reducing the lifetime emissions where they actually happen. So we'll go into a little bit more of that later on. So yeah, lots going on, still more to do.
And so maybe you can say a few words about the manufacturing product trends, maybe, and including some trends like reuse and repair.
Yes, of course, and I would say, if we look at the sustainability aspects of the products, what has been in the focus for a long time is energy efficiency of the products. And many of the products, or most of the products today, are extremely energy efficient. So there is really not that much more to do from energy efficiency in the use phase any longer. What we see now is really in focus, is based on the circular economy concept, that more and more companies start to explore what can be done from this perspective. And the hottest topic, I would say, at least in Europe, is repairability. And some of you, I'm sure, have heard of the French Repairability Index, which is legislation where sellers of products or brands of products are required to report on some aspects regarding how repairable the products are. And there is also quite a strong right to repair movement going on now. So that's the hottest topic, and we see things starting to happen there in the industry as well. And of course, we have included criteria in TCO Certified for this as well, to make it easier to repair the products, for instance. And what I would say, all this circularity, all these circularity aspects connected to the products, what it's really about is to prolong the life length of the product, because that's the key thing going forward. The main footprint of a product today, or of most IT products today, is in the manufacturing phase and the whole supply chain, and not in the use phase, which has been the focus before.
Yes, and
Sorry,
I think
sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, Dennis. I just wanted to add something to what Søren said about repairability and right to repair, which is a huge trend in so many parts. I mean, I think in the US right now, we've got, I think, 10 state bills in committees on right to repair laws that may come into play. Sadly, we see so much of that right to repair discussion land at the sort of grassroots consumer repair cafe level, which is, you know, that's great. But we also need institutional buyers to scale interest in repair, and looking at refurbished, remanufactured products as a top line strategy, as part of their IT procurement. So just kind of putting that food for thought to the listeners today to really start thinking, take a look at refurbished and remanufactured products as part of your strategy, because they're really good.
Thanks, Claire. And I think we all agree on that climate is on the corporate agenda for now. And maybe, Claire, you can continue to talk a bit about, for example, the reporting phase here.
Yeah. So interestingly, I was at a sustainable procurement conference yesterday, and they polled the audience, which is basically procurement professionals, and 75% of the attendees answered that climate is their #1 priority moving into 2023, which is not surprising. We've all got to think about carbon. All of our jobs are climate jobs, is what everybody's saying right now. And definitely, you know, ESG requirements are driving a lot of this interest in measuring and reporting on carbon. Scope 3, you know, those emissions that are in the supply chain are very tricky to get right from a measurement perspective, but they're critically important because, as Søren pointed out earlier, we've got somewhere in the realm of 80% of those lifetime emissions happening in the supply chain. And I always say to people, by the time the product lands on your desk, 80% of those emissions have already happened. So we kind of connect the dots that we need to get the procurement voice further up that value chain to where it's impacting what's happening in the supply chain. It's all about sort of avoiding unnecessary new manufacturing. So this kind of changes the paradigm away from just thinking about climate at the e-waste end of the equation, but further up where it's dealing with product design, manufacturing processes and the like. So yeah, obviously carbon, some new implications for procurement and industry for sure.
Yeah, and maybe I could add a little to that as well. We see that many purchasing organizations are focusing on this product carbon footprint concept, you know, the embedded carbon as well, and starting to engage in that, starting to report on that, which is really good and interesting development. However, there are some things to take into consideration here. We see that more and more brands start to make these product carbon footprint reports for their products, but there is really no standardized way of doing this today. So we have to be a little careful when using this data from these reports. You know, if you take a product and you analyze it with one product carbon footprint tool, you can get a completely different value compared to if you use another product carbon footprint tool. So today it's really what tool you use that gives you a value, and not really what product you use. So you have to be a little careful with that, but of course this is a way into starting to manage also the emissions, the carbon emissions that are happening in the supply chains of the products.
Yes, and one of the other hot topics right now is also, except for the reporting, is in regulations as well. Claire, maybe you can say a few words about that.
Yeah, I think probably everyone on the call today has seen a whole bunch of new regulations, reporting frameworks, all kinds of platforms showing up. Just look at your LinkedIn feed, for example. Every day I noticed there was a new collaboration between EY and Thomson Reuters today around reporting on ESG. So every day there's something new coming our way, right? A big trend in regulatory environment right now, I think, is connected to supply chain. supply chain transparency in various forms. Søren, I don't know if you want to jump in there at all and share what you're seeing.
Yeah, I mean,
from a European perspective.
Yeah, from a European perspective, we have the EU, or I should say EU perspective, perhaps. We have the EU Green Deal work that is being done, and new regulations in the move. And there are some interesting things in there looking into specifically transparency. One concept that is being discussed is product passport. And I will not go into any details, but there are lots of things happening in this area, and from our perspective, we think that this is a really important topic because transparency is needed for accountability. But at the same time, it can be both difficult and sensitive with all this information. So this is an interesting topic, but lots of things are going on in this area.
I think the word transparency is kind of interesting too. You know, lots of calls for transparency, and we often ask internally, okay, transparency for what purpose, right? What do we want to? Why do we want that transparency? And that brings to mind the trend in many markets towards modern slavery legislation, and it can be called a number of different things, but that's a big call for transparency in that context as well. And one thing that's showing up in that dialogue is the need for more due diligence. When it comes to modern slavery. I mean, for those of you in markets dealing with modern slavery statements, you know how, you follow the framework, you put together your statement, and it can be published in a central repository or on your website, for example. I know in Australia right now, there's a discussion right now about, do we need to raise the level of due diligence around modern slavery? And I think that's a really key conversation, because we know from our work in the factories, particularly when it comes to IT, it's when you take a code of conduct but do the due diligence to go in and check what's actually happening and monitor, that's when we're able to bring a code of conduct to life and give it some teeth, right? So that's when you are discovering what's actually happening in that factory environment when it comes to all kinds of forced labor kind of risk, worker health and safety and the like. So I think a big trend on the regulatory side is not just the regulations that are coming at us, but let's look at the due diligence that purchasers really need to have in place to back up a lot of the work that's required. I really think that's an important consideration for us to take into account.
And of course, there's still a lot of focus around circularity as well. Claire, can you continue there maybe?
Yeah, this is a great topic, isn't it? So everyone's talking about circularity. I think what we like to, when we talk with a lot of IT buyers, there's a lot of excitement around circular economy. We get a lot of buyers very happy to say to us, well, we send all our products for recycling. We don't throw anything away. That's good, right? And then sometimes I say, well, it's a place to start, but it's not the goal. Recycling is not the goal. I'd love to have a t-shirt that says, do not recycle this product. It's not an inherently bad thing, but the circular economy, as we know, is all about maintaining and lengthening the use of a product at its highest value, so at its intended initial use. So keeping a computer in use as a computer, not recycling it to make coat hangers, as one example. So what we want to encourage all the buyers on the call today is to think about, okay, if we're talking about extended life, remember we've got that 80% of emissions locked in the supply chain, really points to us as users in our organizations to think about what could we be doing internally to use our products longer, and not just think about that when they arrive at your organization, but get that into your dialogue with the suppliers. This is essentially a product design issue. Waste is in some ways, waste is a design flaw. So we have to get the purchaser voice further into that design decision. So I'd love to challenge everyone on the call today, after the call or maybe into 2023, maybe find some champions, maybe find a department in your own organization and test out what longer use could look like. And sometimes it's not using it for as long as possible. Sometimes it's extending your first use and preparing to enable secondary use, either in your own organization as a redeployment or even outside your organization. So that's really what we need to be thinking about when it comes to circularity. And just quickly, there's a lot of movement on, new business models aimed at circularity, product as a service, for example. So, Søren, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that part of the ecosystem.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think new business models are important for this to happen. I mean, if you sell a product as a service, you create incitement to keep the product alive as long as possible, with as low maintenance costs as possible. That's how you make the most money. So that's a good match between that business model and circularity. However, it doesn't necessarily happen automatically. The sales division can be quite far away from the product development division. And maybe it's even separate companies. So product design doesn't necessarily mean that the products become more circular just because you have a new business model. So to have these requirements, this external pressure also on product design is really important to make this happen. I mean, it's a big ecosystem that needs to be moved in a new direction, and we all need to support this move taking place.
Yeah, I see still a lot of organizations thinking about shredding. There's still a lot of shredding of IT products going on, and sometimes the reason behind that is data privacy, data security concerns. We know this, but really think about moving this up the value chain. Circularity is about preventing excess manufacturing, right? So even in a leasing or a product as a service kind of business model or solution, we can't assume that we are reducing those emissions or that it is a more circular approach if the manufacturing is happening equally as often. So as I say, there's a ton of movement in this space right now, and I think lots of good ambitions out there, but we need to be smart in procurement, we need to be smart in product design, and we also need to marry those two dialogues together very early and often. So always, if you plan on using longer, mention that to your suppliers as early as you possibly can, because that's how it gets embedded in a product design and product manufacturing phase.
All right, so let's talk about TCO Certified for a while. And today marks 1 year since we launched TCO Certified Generation 9. So Søren, what happened since?
Yes, very good news that we have really had a record year for TCO Certified with Generation 9, and we have now in our product finder a little more than 1,300 certified product models, which is really a record all time. So this is good news for the market. And I think one reason we actually changed the development process a little for generation 9. So we made it a little easier for the brands to prepare. We had a longer draft period, so they had more time to prepare to get started with TCO Certified Generation 9. So that has contributed to this, of course. But more important, I would say, is that we see more and more purchasers using TCO Certified as a mandatory requirement in their purchasing documents, and of course the brands want to take part in these tenders. So that is the main driver, I would say.
I just add a really quick note to that, Dennis? I'm sorry. I just wanted to add a quick note about generations, because just a reminder to purchasers out there, when you're specifying TCO Certified, don't mention a generation number. There's a reason for this. It quickly becomes outdated. As you know, we work on a pretty rapid development cycle, so we issue a new generation every 3 years. We are only certifying to one generation at a time. So our recommendation is just put TCO Certified in your specifications and in your procurement documentation. Then you'll be sure to get something that is currently certified at the time of your tender.
That's good information, Claire. Thank you. And maybe you can actually continue to talk a bit about, we have a couple of new guides, and we also have tools for, moving towards measurement here.
Yeah, exciting. So really happy to share with you guys some updated materials and some new materials and some upcoming tools that we hope you really find useful. We've updated our step-by-step guide for purchasers, so you can go to our website and download it. Gives you some really practical tips on how to use TCO Certified and also how to make the most of it in your own organization, you know, getting the right people at the table, having the dialogues at the right time, etc., etc. We've also got a really great summary of everything that's included in TCO Certified. So just giving you the basics about what it is, how you can use it. As we know, it's free to plug and play. Just go ahead and use it and tell us when you use it. We love to hear how it goes for purchasing organizations. Couple of new things. A couple of weeks ago, we launched a really cool learning series called Sustainable IT for Beginners. And we know that a lot of you on the call today might be pretty engaged in the sustainable IT space, but a lot of your team members and colleagues may not be. And what we know is it's really valuable to get your whole organization up to speed on, you know, why this is so important and that it really affects everyone working with IT. And this is a course that we think could be really valuable for you to either take yourself or to share within your organization. It's 5 really quick chapters, some narrative and video and some useful reading that people can easily grasp and get engaged with what your strategy is around IT and sustainability. Finally, coming soon, we are really excited to launch a measurement tool specifically for purchasers that are using TCO Certified in their procurement. You'll be able to take your portfolio of purchased certified models and get some really good measurement support around carbon, around material efficiency, material use, and also some language that you can use connected to social responsibility in supply chains, so supply chain ethics, worker protections, forced labor, that kind of thing. So we think in this first version of a measurement tool, we know this is really difficult to do well. And that's why we've worked very intentionally and deliberately around getting this tool to market at this time. And so we're really excited to have people take a look. We are going to be launching in the next few weeks. If you're interested in taking a look at this tool in its beta version before we launch it fully next year, send us an email and we'd be happy to get you hooked up once it's published.
Great, thanks, Claire. So, do you want to add something to this section here, or maybe we should have a look at questions?
Oh, I've got a couple of things, Dennis. Are you
Okay,
okay
good.
to?
Yes.
There's so much going on with IT purchasing right now. So it's, you know, it's just kind of going back to this idea of, you know, embedding sustainability as part of your procurement strategy, and why that's so important. I think traditionally we've looked at, you know, how do we value, how is a bid competitive? If you're in a tendering environment, you're looking for bids that are competitive. And traditionally it's always been price and performance. Well, we want to get sustainability in there. And I think it's just so key to remind ourselves that there's a reason why you do it early and have that constant dialogue with your suppliers about your intentions. Because if you leave that until the tendering phase and say, oh, I want to get sustainability in there in some way, that doesn't leave your suppliers very much time to adapt to your requirements if they need to. In this case, to get a product certified if it's not already certified, right? This is why it's so important to get that signal happening early in your process, embed it as part of your procurement strategy and your procurement ethos. That way you're giving them time to respond. Because if you leave it to procurement, to the tendering phase, guess what? Then you're going to be asking your suppliers to probably compromise on something. In IT, that could mean really hiking up working hours in factories. So you're creating a production spike that we don't want to see. Maybe a compromise on something like material choice, for example. That applies across the board in any category you're looking at, not just IT. So create that value. Make sustainability part of how you define a competitive bid in your environment. And you know, this allows you to give sustainability a higher weighting. We're starting to see some tenders out there that are weighting sustainability around 25 and 30%, right? And that can really be meaningful. At the same time, puts the onus on the purchaser to have some pretty good due diligence around that, right? If sustainability can be make it or break it in your bidding process, then independent verification, you can't have greenwash, you can't have blue wash in there, because those contracts could get challenged. So, and this is something we're so dedicated to with TCO Certified, is giving you that confidence and giving you that verification that can back up your decision to make sustainability a bigger part of your tactics in procurement. So just wanted to kind of remind everyone of that, how important it is to act early with your supply base and talk to them often about this priority.
Thanks, Claire. And now, Søren, you get the chance here if you want to add something before we head on to the questions section.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe to kind of connect it to where we started. Claire mentioned greenwash and blue wash, and of course this is a problems that's increasing as well. I mean, with a bigger interest in sustainability, it becomes more important also to look more sustainable as a company and to have your products look more sustainable. So this is really something to look out for as a purchaser. Luckily, also the legislators have finally kind of awoken to this problem and start to regulate this. We see upcoming regulations in EU, and we have seen some legal cases. I guess the most well-known one is the Dieselgate legal case in US with all the diesel cars. That was really a big cheat from a sustainability perspective. So this is really something to look out for from a purchaser perspective as well. I mean, this is what we are targeting with TCO Certified as well. So reach out to us if you want to know more how you can do this and how we can assist as well.
Thanks, Søren. And we got a couple of questions here, so maybe we should head on to that and start looking at them. And so for us as a sustainability certification, factory audits are very, very important. And we just had COVID and continuing lockdowns, etc., etc. So maybe, Søren, can you explain a bit how that had worked during COVID for us?
Yeah, I mean, and during COVID, this has been a big challenge. I mean, there have been lockdowns, and it's not been possible for the auditors to enter the factories. So we have been, it's been necessary for us also to take this into consideration, of course. But luckily now during 2022, since the start of this year, it's been quite straightforward again. So the auditors have been able to go to the factories during the last year. And this is really necessary. There have been some remote kind of audits, like video conference based audits, but that is not really sufficient. You have to be in the factories to see what is actually happening. And now with all the tests, I mean, yeah, both workers and auditors have to lots of times to test every day before they go into the factory, and then it's back to normal. And yes, sure, I mean, we still hear about these outbreaks, especially in China, but that is still from factory to factory it can happen, but in general the auditing is going on now as normal. One thing I could add to that as well is that because of the pandemic, factories have been shut down. So one thing that the auditors are looking at a lot now is to make sure that the recovery after the pandemic, maybe you have backlogs of production and so on, should not affect the working conditions and working hours in a bad way. So that is a specific topic that is actually part of the audits now after the worst phase of the pandemic.
Thanks. And Claire, here we have a question directly to you, I think. What should purchasers have on their shortlist for 2023?
Oh, wow. Short list. It could be a long list, but let's make it a short list. Let's start with the kind of the potentially challenging economic environment a lot of people, a lot of countries are facing right now. I think there's a very real risk in times of inflation and whatnot to go back to our old ways of looking at price as the main value in a bid. I would say try as best you can to keep sustainability up the top of that agenda as well. I think that's going to be critically important. As we know, this is continuous improvement. This is not a silver bullet. This kind of sustainable procurement work. So I think persistence, keeping the heat on, both internally and with our suppliers, is going to really be important, even moving through challenging economic times. I would also say do something. It sounds very simple, but I think we're in an era now where so many of our companies have sustainability ambitions, sustainability strategies. I think it was McKinsey who came out and they had quite a large number of companies they were working with, and all of them had great sustainability strategies, but I think only 40% of them said, well, we've got the tools and the knowledge. So I think it's time to put aspiration into action. TCO Certified is one thing that you can do tomorrow, in essence. It's a place to start and to build your strategy kit and your toolkit about getting more sustainable. But the third thing I want to put on the short list is something I mentioned before. Start looking at what longer use could mean in your organization. Could you extend your current procurements by 1 year, for example? What would that mean for your cost, for your energy efficiency, for your service agreements, for example? These products are made to last. I mean, I heard a purchaser yesterday with this assumption like, well, you have to get a new computer every 2 years. I think we all know you don't. So I would love to just have everyone start that thought process. Find some champions inside your organization who are willing to maybe pilot something. I think we need to all move ahead with this idea of longer use and the idea of promoting repairability and buying refurbished and remanufactured products. So let's get more circular in a practical way. Would be a great thing to put on your list for 2023. And of course, use TCO Certified when you're buying new products.
So you're speaking about longer product use, and we got a question here around longer product use and software compatibility. What do we say about that? Maybe Søren, that's your question.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the problem is actually decreasing since more and more systems become browser based. So more and more employees can do everything they need in just a browser. They don't need any other tool, and then lots of the software compatibility, lots of these problems go away actually. So that is a positive trend. But of course, in big companies with lots of legacy software, it will take time for sure until it goes away completely, if it ever will. But I think the trend is definitely positive for this. Maybe Claire, you have something to add to that.
It's definitely a question we get often, and you know, I would not claim to have a lot of expertise in this area, but yeah, I think that the browser-based programs are definitely showing some promise, and yeah, definitely a work in progress. I would also add, Dennis, not necessarily connected to this, but it just comes to mind as far as tactics moving forward. We talked about the focus on carbon, and clearly it's a high priority, but I would just caution purchasers on the call today to not let a focus on carbon cause blind spots in other areas, right? Like social responsibility. If you're going to be looking at sustainability, you really have to look at all the interconnected parts, you know, materials, people. You know, you really have to have all these aspects in combination, which is why TCO Certified is structured the way it is. We don't believe that you can focus on carbon to the exclusion of worker protections in the supply chain, for example. So that's not a trade-off that you should be willing to make either. So I would just say, think holistically moving forward.
So we have another interesting question here, and jumping back to for instance, factory audits, etc. It's a question about if we have offices in Asia for when it comes to the manufacturing and the factory audits, etc. Maybe Søren, you can explain how it works a bit more there.
Yeah, we have. I mean, we're not a huge organization, but we have some offices around the world with 1 or 2 persons, and we actually have an office in Taipei with 1 person there managing our industry relations, since lots of the manufacturing is taking place in Asia. That is really important for us. But regarding the independent verification that we have in connected to or that we base TCO Certified on, that is actually done by verification organizations. So we have a number of approved verification organizations that we work with, which have offices and test engineers and auditors around in all over the world, but we work with the ones that are usually close to where manufacturing of the products that we certify, where they are. So there are lots of people. There are hundreds of people on the ground doing all this verification for TCO Certified, but they are not employed by us. They are working in these independent organizations. And I mean, if you're into this world, you probably know them. It's typically TÜV Rheinland and Intertech and SGS. It's these kind of organizations we are speaking about.
Thanks for clearing that out. And we have an interesting question here. How can I choose which notebook model to buy? They are looking for the most sustainable ones. How do we help there? Claire?
So I would suggest your first stop would be to go to our product finder at tcocertified.com. Maybe Dennis, we could send out a link to that after the session today. Cool.
Yes.
So there you can go and search by product type, by brand, a few different parameters. So what we don't do is product rankings per se. You know, TCO Certified is more like a pass-fail kind of certification. We don't have things like optional criteria. You know, a product must pass all the criteria, but you can definitely go to the product finder. You can create your own personalized list. You can create what's called a watcher, which monitors a certain type of product that you might be interested in. So yes, head over to Product Finder and do some fun searching.
That's good, Claire. And we have a question here around repairability. It's a great step. We got a question here. Should manufacturers be liable to take back products which are not repairable? That's probably not a question for us, more the manufacturers, but maybe we can give a hint on how we can do this.
Yeah, I mean, this is something we are looking at a lot. We think this is also would be interesting from a circularity perspective, but it's not that simple. If a product is not repairable any longer, it's actually defined as waste, and then in many countries it's a governmental monopoly to collect waste, so it's not even allowed by brand owners to collect broken products. So I mean, this should probably be changed. But it's not that tricky because there are lots of illegal waste streams in the world that is causing lots of problems in some specific countries, especially, and it's really important to have a good tracking system here. But it's definitely an interesting concept, and especially if you connect this with new business models like product as a service, it definitely makes sense. And even though a product is broken, maybe you can still use some parts in the products and take two broken products to create one that is working actually. So lots of things needs to be done there, but it can't be done just from a market perspective. Actually, the legislators needs to be involved in this because the current regulations are a little problematic for this to happen.
Thanks. And we have more questions here around remanufactured and refurbished products. They reduce cost and help promoting sustainability, of course. Does TCO Certified cover these products or have plans to, are the question?
Remanufactured products?
Yes. refurbished?
Yes, no, TCO Certified does not cover that. Currently, we have been looking at different possibilities, or I should say, we are looking at different possibilities to make that happen more than today as well. But the main thing with TCO Certified today is that we put the utmost responsibility for the product with the brand owner. So the brand, what you see, the brand that is printed on your product, that's the part that where we put the utmost responsibility for all the criteria we have in TCO Certified. And the problem is that with a remanufactured product, it's the many of the aspects have been taken over by the remanufacturing company or the refurbishing company. So it will not be possible to put the responsibility on the brand any longer. So it doesn't go very well together with the structure in TCO Certified today. So that is the reason why we don't do that.
Thanks. And we got a couple of questions here about moving to the cloud. What do we have to say about that? Maybe Søren, that's a question for you as well.
Yes, I mean, I would say that in general, my personal view is that in general this is a good trend. Moving both computing and storage to the cloud makes it much easier to keep the client products alive longer, and you can also create much better efficiency solutions in the data centers to manage this, to use the resources in a much more efficient way. So I think personally that this is a good trend, but again, the efficiency doesn't necessarily happen automatically for all sustainability aspects. It will happen for those that also reduces cost, but not for those that don't reduce costs. So we also need to put put pressure on the data center companies, the cloud service companies, to also have more sustainable cloud computing. And this is an area that we are looking at, and for those of you who follow us, you know that we have product certifications for the IT products you put in the data centers, but of course sustainability in the data centers is a lot bigger than just the IT products you have there. So this is something we're looking at, and we're trying to figure out what we can do in this space as well going forward.
If I can just jump in there briefly, I think here's another case where, as a purchaser, you want to ask really informed questions when you're buying a cloud service. I mean, we know some of these very large data centers are placed in very dry, hot parts of the United States is one example. You know, we want to be asking, and are you using scarce resources like water to cool the data center? What's your energy mix to cool the data center, for example? So there's a bunch of sort of complementary questions that you want to make sure that you're putting in the mix when you're buying a cloud service as well, beyond hardware, of course.
Thanks, Claire, and thanks, Søren, and thanks to everyone that attended. Time flies. The webinar will be available on demand via our website, tcocertified.com. There you can also find information on everything we talk about, and you can find our product finder there, and you can also subscribe to our newsletter. So I want to thank you all, and until we see you next time, goodbye.